doing?
For 2 hours.
Very good.
I'll let you know.
Glad to hear.
Come on, Super Champion. Congressman, how are you, sir?
How are you?
Hey.
Good to see you,
Oh,
sir.
we're gonna
Had a
meet
long time no see.
You're
Sure.
right.
You might be on the other side.
Giants.
Murray does that to everyone.
Yeah, I always be in the back row, so it's great to be.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Erie County Rath Building. I'm Mark Polenkars, County Executive, as we're here to give a one-year update on the work of our Gun Violence Task Force, and we do have some good news to report on the work that's been done and the initiatives that are moving forward. Pleased to be joined by Karen Gambino from Deaf Access Services, who's providing the American Sign Language to all out there. We're also joined by quite a number of individuals here, some of whom you'll hear from, including our Congressman Brian Higgins. Congressman Higgins has been instrumental in ensuring that we receive the financial assistance to move forward with a number of these programs. We also have a number of leaders from our departments in Erie County government, as well as our good friend from the Erie County Legislature, Legislator Howard Johnson. We'll also hear from Murray Holman from the Stop the Violence Coalition on the work that's being done with his organization. And I want to thank the members of the Stop the Violence Coalition that are here today. 1 year ago on July 20th, so 2 more days from now in 1 year, I signed this executive order declaring gun violence as a public health crisis in Erie County and impaneling a task force to begin work to address this. Because of the work of so many individuals, not just the task force, but others that are not here today, including members from the Buffalo Police Department, the Erie County Sheriff's Office, the Erie County District Attorney's Office, we do have some good news to report, at least as a comparison of 2021 to 2022 with gun violence. And that is a reduction during the first 3 months of the year in the number of shootings, the number of individuals who are shot using guns, as well as the number of victims of gun violence. And compared to other urban areas in New York State, we are one of the only urban areas to actually see a reduction in gun violence, as the statistics show. And this is the work of everyone. I don't want people to think it's just the individuals that you see standing here or this one specific task force, but everyone in the community who we knew last year we were dealing a rash of increases in gun violence, the number of shootings, the number of people shot, and the number of deaths, that something had to be done, and many partners came together to do that, to address it. And I really want to thank everyone that you see standing here, as well as all of our partners from across the community who've played a role. Just to give you an example, between the first 3 months of this year compared to the first 3 months of last year, in the city of Rochester, there were 55 shooting incidences in 21 and 55 shooting incidences in 22. In the city of Syracuse, there were 25 shooting incidences in 21. There were 24 shooting incidences in 22. And in the city of Buffalo, there were 63 shooting incidences in the first 3 months of 21, and there were 39 shooting incidences in the first 3 months of 22. The largest reduction of any urban area in New York State. There are actually other parts of the New York State which unfortunately have seen increases in the number of shooting incidences. The same number holds true for the number of shooting victims in Erie County and City of Buffalo compared to our colleagues across upstate New York. In 21, there were 66 individuals who were shooting victims during the first 3 months of the year. In Rochester, there were 65 in 22. In Syracuse, there were 25 shooting victims during the first 3 months of 21, and there were 25 in 22. In Buffalo, there were 72 shooting victims in the first 3 months of 21, and there were 50 in the first 3 months of 22. And this is an example of our community coming together to say we need to stop the violence, as the Stop the Violence Coalition talks about every day, as well as all the other partners out there, fathers, mad dads, every group you can imagine, because what we understand is that it takes a community to address these issues. And we knew coming out of COVID that there were things that were not being done that needed to be reinvested in to ensure that our community would be a safer community for all. Now, the latest statistics that will come out from the gun-involved violence elimination program, which our probation office is very instrumental in, as well as the district attorney's office with funding from the federal government through Congressman Higgins, will indicate an increase, of course, in shooting victims, especially for the month of May, because they will not differentiate because of the incident that occurred at Tops on May 14th. But when you do a comparison of other shooting incidences, other shooting victims, this trend appears to be continuing with a reduction in the number of shooting incidences and victims in our community, and it is a testimony for the hard work of so many individuals. So today we're releasing a report, which is a status report on the Erie County Gun Violence Prevention Task Force, which was prepared by Andrew McLaren from my office. Andrew's on the end, the special assistant to the county executive, who is the liaison to the task force. Many of the task force members are here with us today, representing the various departments that we have in county government, including our Department of Health with Dr. Burstein, our commissioner, as well as our new director of the Office of Health Equity, Kelly Wooford. We have our probation commissioner, Michelle Ozawi, because we understand that individuals who are on probation are, of course, at a higher risk for issues associated with recidivism and crime, and so the more that we can do to ensure that they lead a better life and get through their probation and become an honorable citizen of our community, the better we will be with regards to the reduction in the number of shooting victims in our community, as well as shooting incidences. So today, and I won't go into all the details associated with what's in the report, but it does go through a number of the programs that have been implemented during this past year as a result of the work of the task force. And I really want to thank all of our partners here once again for their hard work and effort during this last year to come up with these programs, which really are making a difference. The task force was charged with a lot: to decrease gun violence among youth, increase funding to programs specifically designed to reduce gun violence, work with our local law enforcement agencies to create strategies to reduce the number of illegal firearms that are on the streets, work with marginalized populations to provide education on gun violence, advocate for relevant policies and support state and local as well as federal policies that reduce gun violence in our community. This task force report is through May of 2022, and it is a combination report of all the work that was done by the task force. There is additional funding in the GIVE program, the Gun Involved Violence Elimination program, that was used throughout all of the partners with the GIVE program to ensure that we could reduce the number of gun incidences in our community. That is a program that is a collaboration between the Buffalo Police Department, the Erie County District Attorney's Office, the Erie County Sheriff's Office, the Erie County Central Police Services, as well as our probation department. The task force also expedited an additional $530,727 in funding received by New York State to expand the 2021 Summer Youth Employment Program, which allowed more youth to be getting jobs so that they were working and moving forward rather than just being on the street. So yes, that definitely deserves a round of applause. We were able, as a result of that, to allow 73 additional youth to engage in a 16-week program above and beyond what we normally do on an annual basis. And that had to move very quickly, and I want to thank all the members of the task force for the work to do that in 21, and the same thing continues with regards to 22. There also was increased efforts to address some of the core problems and issues that result in individuals unfortunately turning to a life of crime. And I want to specifically highlight the work of our Health Equity Office led by Director Kelly Wooford, who's played a much more increased role with regards to the task force than we even imagined early on, because we know that the issues associated with preventing crime in our community is not just about preventing crime, but addressing the social determinants of health and other issues that often affect people, leading them to, unfortunately, criminal activity. So I want to thank the Department of Health as well as our Department of Social Services, which expanded its youth anti-violence program in this year to ensure that we're continuing to address this. Just to give you an example, since July 2021, 5,150 local youth have participated in the Summer Youth Employment Program throughout all of Erie County. And that is a tremendous increase in what we saw in the past. And it is a testament to the hard work of many that we were able to do that. There's other work that is going on, including what appears to be a very innovative way of addressing crime in communities. Analysis was done that indicated that in communities where you have more trees, more foliage, you actually have less crime. And so one of the initiatives is to actually do a community tree planting initiative in some of the highest crime areas in our community, which often have the least amount of trees and foliage. So I want to thank the members of the task force for looking at the data on that and coming up with ideas. We're also going to be working in the future with the University of Buffalo School of Social Work to do an environmental scan. We're actually partnering right now with them. They're doing the work to analyze this, to integrate the mapping of gun violence hotspots with the mapping of resources and other assets that exist in the community. So I want to thank the University of Buffalo School of Social Work to assist us in this. And while we don't have the report out yet, it is in the process of being done, and it's a result of the work of the task force. The task force has also secured 300 gun locks to distribute to Erie County residences upon their acquiring of a gun, or their continued ownership of a gun. Why do we do that? Because we know that often it's not the individual who purchases the gun, who owns the gun, that commits a crime, but other members of their family who may steal the gun and use it for something else, whether it's crime on the street or a suicide. But if you have a gun lock, it will never be used for that purpose, because the individuals outside of that owner will never be able to access the gun and use it. There's a lot of other work that's going on, including recent meeting between the representatives of the task force with representatives from every town for gun safety. They were in town recently, and our task force sat down with them to discuss other initiatives that we will be pursuing in the future. But the example of the good work of everyone in this community, once again, I don't want to just limit it to this task force, but everyone who's been involved in this issue, is the reduction in the number of shooting incidents, shooting victims, and deaths in our community, except for, of course, the shooting that occurred on May 14th, which is a different issue than truthfully what this task force has been impaneled to work on. That was a situation where, as we know, a white supremacist from outside of our area came into our community to kill as many people of color as possible. 10 lives were lost, 3 others were directly injured, and we know countless of others are shattered and hurting because of it. That is something we will continue to deal with as a community. It is something we maybe couldn't have addressed with this task force, but we are addressing the issues that directly affect every member of our community because of the gun violence that occurs in our community often on a day-to-day basis. I'm happy to say we are seeing a reduction in the number of shooting incidences and the victims when you do a comparison of year to year, and we are one of the only urban areas in New York State to actually see that. That is a testament to the work of not only the individuals you see here, but every person who's involved in the effort to reduce crime and gun violence in our community. So on behalf of the people of Erie County, I want to thank everyone who's done that, because it has made a difference. There are less deaths in our community as of direct gun violence that we see on our streets compared to prior years. There's less shooting victims and there's less shooting incidences. And that is truthfully what we all came together last year to hope to do. The work is not done. There are still shooting incidences that are occurring in our community. We know that there's more work that needs to be done, and this task force will continue to do that work. But on behalf of the people of Erie County, I just want to thank everyone here for your continued good work. And it is making a difference in saving lives in our community, and that is something that we can all be proud of. Thank you. With that, I'd like to turn it over to our great Congressman Brian Higgins, who's been instrumental in ensuring that we receive the assistance from the federal government and work with our federal government agencies to address gun violence in our community. Mr. Congressman.
Once again, I want to thank our County Executive Mark Polenkars for having the presence of mind to pull this task force together for the purpose of addressing a problem that's pervasive and growing. Almost 9 weeks ago, as Mark had said, a premeditated attack on a very important part of our community occurred and took 10 very, very good people, ages 32 through 86. They were mothers and fathers, they were grandmothers and grandfathers. They were a retired school teacher and a retired police officer. I often hear it said that the way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Well, in that supermarket, there was a good guy with a gun, Aaron Salter Jr. He was a 30-year veteran of the Buffalo Police Department, and while he saved people, he couldn't save more because he was outgunned by the bad guys. That is a flaw in the bill that was signed into law last week, the Safer Communities Act. The other issue is comprehensive background checks. As we know, 90% of the American people support them. Some people just shouldn't have guns. It's not a constitutional issue. It's a public safety issue. It is not ideological. It is commonsensical. But the work of this task force over the past year has dug deeply into finding ways to mitigate gun violence. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention now says that the leading cause of death for children in America is gun violence. Who are we as a society if we can't stop that and significantly improve it? The work of this task force, the leadership of our county executive, the leadership of Stop the Violence Coalition, the trusted messengers who are doing the hard work in the neighborhoods, on the streets, working together, are going to make a big difference. And the federal government will be with you to provide necessary funding for all of these mitigation efforts toward the goal that we all share, and that is reducing gun violence in Erie County, in the city of Buffalo, the state of New York, and in this good country. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Congressman. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman, and on behalf of the people of Erie County, I want to thank you for your continued strong advocacy for strong gun controls, including the passage of the Bipartisan Reform Act. It is not enough, as you note. There's more that needs to be done, but it was the first major piece of federal legislation with regards to addressing gun violence in 30 years, at least. So it was a great start, but as we know, there's more to do, and I know he'll be fighting for that in Washington. We are joined by my colleague in Erie County government, Legislator Howard Johnson. This is a very important issue for Howard because not only is he a legislator who has to deal with it sometimes with individuals in his district, but he himself was a victim of a gun violence incident years ago. So he can speak from it better than most about the impact of gun violence and why the work that we're doing is making a difference. Legislator Johnson.
Thank you, County Executive. Today, what you see here is a collaborative and intentional approach to reduction in gun violence. As the County Executive said, yes, I was a victim of gun violence back in 2008, so I can relate to someone being shot, someone being hurt by these things. I'd like to thank the County Executive because I was standing here with him last year when he declared gun violence a pandemic in our community, and we brought the right people together. I want to thank our violence interrupter groups like the Peacemakers, Mad Dads, Stop the Violence for the work they do, because they're actually boots on the ground who are actually out in the community talking to the folks, encouraging folks to take a different approach to handling difficult and tense situations. I want to thank you guys for it. What we see here today is just a start. We understand that there needs to be more, and more will be done. I'm committed to continually working with the task force and with our administration and with our violence interrupter groups to ensure that happens, so we can see those numbers reduce in greater volume. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator. One of the keys to the task force is it wasn't just government saying here's what we're going to do, but bringing in our partners from all of the various agencies and organizations that are working on a daily basis to address this. Whether it's, I see we've been joined by Reverend Giles and Back to Basics, friends from MVP, of course Stop the Violence Coalition. We talked about some of the other organizations, but they're on the streets. They're dealing with these issues. Being the person who's often talking to a gang member or an individual who's potentially thinking about engaging a criminal act. And they're the ones who are making truthfully the biggest difference, because they are helping on an everyday basis to stop crime in our community by giving people another opportunity to advance themselves through a job, but also saying, hey, we've been there. We know what you're going through, but there's a better life. There's a better way to do it. And as someone who sits on the National Association of Counties Executive Board, I can tell you there's not many communities across the United States that have this type of peer network, so to speak, that's working to address issues of crime. And I know in the rest of New York State, they don't have the same type of backbone that we have through all of these community organizations making a difference. And it's something that should be replicated nationally, and I'm proud to say that we're doing it here. And it is my pleasure to introduce to the podium right now Murray Holman, who's been fighting this issue for many years, but being truly one of the main leaders in our community, and someone that people understand and respect across our greater community, because he is not afraid to do what is necessary to address these issues, putting himself and everyone else here, they are all putting themselves sometimes at risk, dealing with very hardened individuals, but they're making a difference. And on behalf of the people of Erie County, I want to thank once again all the members of the community organizations for making a difference. You are saving lives. And with that, introduce and allow Murray to say a few words on behalf of the efforts that they're doing, which is truthfully creating a safer Buffalo and Erie County for all. So Murray.
To God be the glory. First, we want to give God honor for allowing us to come here and to be in this place. But one thing we want to make clear is our organizations, our collaboration of organizations, we have a task in front of us to get things done in our community with the help of the county exec and my good friend, Mr. Brian Higgins, as alumni for South Park. I had to push that out there, but when the county exec called me during the COVID and said, what can we do to help? There was no red tape. It came out. He said, let's put it together. He allowed his whole staff of the county to come forward to meet with us, with the Urban League as well, Stop the Violence and Peacemakers, to figure out how we can get past the red tape and make it happen. We have kids, youth that's working in our community right now, not just picking up paper in our community, but learning trades, financing, learning how to put the gun down, be off our streets from 4 to 8, 4 to 9, because that's the peak hour when gun violence usually happens in our community. With the help and collaboration of restorative practices from Pastor Giles, with the HEAT program and other things that are going on, we have kids that's ready to say we're going to change the mindset of this data and we're going to make it work. It's crucial that when you push the news out that you talk about the results. Red tape is no longer needed. We should just go ahead and get the resources to our organizations and so we can move forward. Thank you, County Exec, and thank you, Brian Higgins, and keep up the good work. And God bless you all.
Thank you, Murray. I did want to specifically note that the Erie County Sheriff's Office with Sheriff John Garcia, as well as the Erie County District Attorney's Office with our District Attorney John Flynn, have played instrumental roles in this gun violence task force. Unfortunately, neither of them could be here today, but I did want to let them know that I do appreciate the good work of their local offices to making a difference. So once again, we have seen positive numbers. Unfortunately, every death is one death too many, and that's why this task force will continue to exist, to ensure that we can reduce the numbers and be not just an example of how it should be done, but get to a point where people are looking at Buffalo and Erie County not as a hot spot for gun violence, but an example of how we can actually create a better, safer community for all and have that be replicated elsewhere. With that, I'll open up to any questions. Might want to wait for the fire truck.
Right.
Well, let me go to Sandra first. She actually had the question. The one thing that is a little issue with this, the GIVE data, is it's a comparison of other communities. We're expecting to get the latest data on that fairly soon on a quarterly basis. So now that we've closed out the second quarter. We expect to receive some of that in the next few weeks. We don't have it yet. The information that I've been told, and I think others can probably testify, is except for the May 14th shooting, we were continuing to see a reduction in shootings as a community and deaths as a community other than that. Unfortunately, that will be included in the most upcoming GIV data that will be provided, which will show this big spike because of it's only considered one incident, but 10 deaths as a result of it. So that will show, and I don't know the exact comparison of how that will look like compared to other parts of the state. We expect to have that fairly soon. We actually had hoped to have this press conference a little sooner, but because of some issues, we had to delay it. But once we have the latest comparison data for the city of Buffalo, our region, compared to Syracuse, Rochester, Suffolk County, all these other parts of New York State, we will release that. Well, first off, they haven't really started the work that the sheriff has proposed. We just authorized the funding source for it. So that actually really hasn't started yet. The sheriff has a proposal, of course, to create a sort of a behavioral threat response team to identify potential threats in the community. That, of course, is the support of the legislature and my office as well. And I do anticipate that the task force will work with that organization. It's got a different kind of view. That is to try to identify individuals who would be at risk for these mass casualty events, which is different than the day-to-day functions that the violence task force does, our anti-gun task force does. But there will be partnerships, there's no doubt about that. Any other questions? If not, thank you everyone for being here. I appreciate it. And hopefully we continue the good work of seeing reductions in the number of violent incidences using guns, as well as shooting victims and deaths. Because of the good work of many, we are. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
How you doing? Well? Gotta get one of your cars.
I don't have any ammunition.
Well,
I'm easy to reach.